I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who would sit in the dark at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, wondering how everything unraveled so fast. But here I am. 1 year ago, I was still someone's wife. I was still a mom of two, trying to hold together a house, a routine, a life. And I was still naive enough to believe that love, real love, meant something, that promises mattered. But then, he left. No warning, no fight, no explanation, just a cold silence and an empty side of the bed. And within weeks, the truth came out. He wasn't just gone. He had moved in with someone else. Another woman. Another life. One he apparently had been building while I was busy wiping our kids' noses and putting dinner on the table. That betrayal shattered me. Not just because he left me, but because he left us his children, his family, like we were disposable, like we never mattered. This isn't just a story about heartbreak. It's a story about surviving betrayal, reclaiming dignity, and learning how to rebuild from nothing, while holding your babies close and trying not to fall apart. So if you've ever been left behind, silenced, or made to feel invisible, this story is for you. Subscribe to Lies Unveiled for real stories that don't sugarcoat betrayal, because sometimes the truth is the only thing that can set us free. We met her once at a parent-teacher night. Just another mom in the school hallway, polite smile, slightly too much perfume. I didn't think much of her at the time. She laughed too loud, leaned in too close. But I was polite. I had no reason not to be. Our daughters were friends. I figured maybe it's good for the kids if the moms get along. But I didn't know. I didn't know what was really happening. While I was juggling work and kids and appointments, my husband was juggling something else. Or rather, someone else. And it wasn't just a one-time slip. They had been seeing each other for months long enough to develop a routine, a system, a disgusting sort of intimacy. She was at her house during the day when her daughter was at school, and he would drop by on his lunch breaks. She told him she liked the thrill. He told her he felt free with her. I know this because I read the texts. Yes, I saw the messages. All of them. He said she understood him, that she wasn't always tired or nagging like I was. They joked about me, about how I'd never find out, about how I was too busy being a mom to notice anything. And then one message that made my stomach flip inside out. Let's just book the hotel again next Friday. That room with the red sheets. I still remember how you looked on that bed. I stared at that text until the letters blurred. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a performance. A planned, cruel orchestration between two people who knew better, who had children. She had watched my daughter sleep over at her house. She had watched me smile at her. And all the while, she was sleeping with my husband. There's a kind of pain that doesn't just break you, it poisons you. And in that moment, I realized the life I thought I had was never really mine. I didn't scream when I confronted him. I didn't throw plates or pack bags or make dramatic threats. I just stood there, holding his phone in my shaking hand, whispering, "Why her?" He didn't deny it. He didn't cry. He didn't even flinch. He just shrugged and said, "I'm not happy anymore." That was it. Years of marriage, 2 children, a life we built together, and the man I loved reduced it all to a casual, lifeless excuse. I'm not happy anymore. The next few days blurred. He moved out like it was nothing, packed his gym bag and a few clothes, and walked out the front door while our kids watched cartoons in the living room. Within a week, I found out he had already changed the locks on our joint bank account. I had no access to our savings. None. He froze the credit cards. He told the landlord he wanted to remove me from the lease. And the worst part? He filed for divorce first. And in court, God, in court, he made me look like the unstable one. He told the judge I was emotionally erratic since the birth of our second child, that I couldn't handle stress, that I wasn't financially competent to raise the kids alone. He stood there in a pressed suit and lied through his teeth, and they believed him. They gave him the car. They gave him half the furniture. And he walked away with our savings while I stood there holding a toddler in one arm and my lawyer's bill in the other. I had no choice but to move back in with my parents. And you know the thing that broke me most? My older daughter, 8 years old, asked me if she could still go over to her best friend's house. She didn't know. She didn't understand. That was the night I locked myself in the bathroom and cried into a towel so no one could hear me. He didn't just cheat on me. He gutted me, and then had the nerve to pretend he was the victim. We moved into my old bedroom. Me and my 2 babies. 1 crib, 1 twin mattress, and 2 suitcases that held everything I had left. The room still smelled like my teenage years. Posters I never took down. Drawers filled with dust and high school memories. But now I was a mother, a grown woman, lying awake at night beside my children, wondering how the hell I got here. There were days I couldn't eat, nights I couldn't sleep. I'd wake up drenched in sweat from dreams where he walked in, smiled, and said, "You made this happen." I was ashamed. Ashamed that I didn't see it coming. Ashamed that I let him win in court. Ashamed that I needed my parents' help again. But even worse, I hated the way my daughter's eyes searched mine, as if asking, "Mommy, are we going to be okay?" And I didn't know. I didn't know if we would. There were times I'd lock myself in the bathroom just to cry, silently, so they wouldn't hear me, so they wouldn't see their mother break. I went to bed with my arms wrapped around both kids, holding them like lifelines, whispering, "I've got you. I've got you," even when I wasn't sure I had myself. And then came the blow that shattered what was left of me. My older daughter came home from school and said, "Daddy had lunch with Anna's mom today. They looked like they were laughing." Anna, her best friend, her best friend's mom, the same woman who wrecked our lives. I smiled. I said nothing. But that night, I stared at the ceiling for hours. And the thought that echoed through my skull was, he didn't just choose her. He chose to humiliate me. Publicly. Openly. I wasn't just a single mom. I was a survivor. Of betrayal. Of legal defeat. Of a man who looked me in the eye for years and said, "I love you," while planning his escape behind my back. My son was just 3 when his world cracked in half, though he didn't know it yet. Too young to understand betrayal, but old enough to feel the sudden emptiness where his father used to be. At first, the questions were innocent. Where's Daddy? Why didn't he come tuck me in? I'd lie with a smile I could barely hold. He's working late. He'll be here soon. But soon never came. Instead, a letter arrived. A cold, clinical envelope. Inside was a request for a paternity test. He wanted to know if our son was really his. As if 3 years of bedtime stories, first steps, and sleepy morning cuddles weren't enough proof. I didn't cry when I read it. I didn't cry when I took our son to the clinic. I didn't even cry when the results confirmed what we both already knew. But when the silence followed, no phone call, no apology, no attempt to reconnect, that's when the tears came. He had his answer. And still, he walked away. My daughter, older and more guarded, stopped asking about him altogether. She learned quickly that silence hurt less than hope. But my son, he started searching for his father in every man who came near. He clung to my brother's leg during visits. waved at the mailman like he was family. Once, he asked my father if he could call him Dad. And the worst? He had this game he played with his toy dinosaurs. He'd line them up assigning roles. This one's Mommy. This one's Sissy. This one's Baby. Then he'd pause, pick up the last one and say, "This one left us." He didn't know, but he knew. When he scraped his knee and started to cry, he didn't call for me. He whispered, "Maybe Daddy will come back if I be brave." That night, I locked myself in the bathroom and let the pain shake through me in silence. Because how do you explain to a child that the man who made him chose not to love him? He wasn't just absent. He had the truth in his hands, proof on paper, and he still turned his back. He saw the son who carried his eyes, his laugh, his name, and said nothing. There's a moment, after all the tears have dried, when you realize no one's coming to save you. No text, no knock on the door, no miracle, just silence, and the small hands of your children, reaching for comfort you're not sure you even have to give. That was my beginning. We moved into the guest room at my parents' place. 3 people, 2 bags, 1 broken heart. I'd lie awake most nights, staring at the ceiling fan spin above me, wondering how the hell I ended up here, 33 years old, 2 kids asleep beside me, and not even a place to call our own. My mom tried to help, offering warm meals, a soft bed, gentle words. But nothing she said could soften the sting of being discarded. So I did what mothers do. I got up. I made breakfast. I walked my daughter to school with a smile, even when my knees were trembling. I held my son's hand tighter, as if my grip could keep him safe from the absence of a father. Then I started working nights. Small jobs, cash gigs, cleaning offices after hours, packing boxes at a warehouse. There were days I didn't sleep. Nights I cried while folding laundry, thinking no one could hear. But slowly, so slowly, I started to feel something I hadn't in a long time. Control. It wasn't power. Not yet. But it was something. I made a budget. I saved every dollar I could. My parents watched the kids while I studied online. I took courses on graphic design, typing, admin support. Whatever I could find for free. 3 months later, I landed a remote job. It didn't pay much, but it was mine. My first paycheck came in. I stared at the numbers and cried. Not because it was enough, but because I'd earned it. Me. Alone. No husband. No rescuer. No one to thank but myself. I started building a life. Brick by painful brick. A life where my children didn't have to tiptoe around my sadness. A life where I didn't wait for a text that never came. And you know what? One night, while brushing my daughter's hair, she said, "Mommy, you smile more now." That's when I knew I was healing. Not healed, not whole, but healing. There's a silence that comes after survival. Not the frantic silence of shock or the aching silence of betrayal, but the quiet after you've fought for your life and won. I remember sitting at the kitchen table one night, the kids finally asleep, a half cup of tea gone cold in front of me. And I thought, how strange it is to feel stronger right after being shattered. My mind drifted to him, not with longing, not even with anger, just a cold sort of clarity. He didn't just cheat. He abandoned. He rewrote the definition of family without asking me or the children. And he didn't flinch. He became someone I no longer recognized, a man who could look into the eyes of a toddler and choose distance, a man who could call another woman home before I'd even unpacked our pain. For a long time, I thought the worst part was the betrayal, but it wasn't. It was the way he vanished without explanation. The way he let me drown, knowing I couldn't even swim. And yet, if I'm honest, I learned more from him leaving than I ever did when he stayed. He taught me what love isn't. Love doesn't humiliate. Love doesn't compete. Love doesn't vanish at the first sign of struggle. He taught me that kindness without consistency is manipulation. That promises mean nothing when paired with selfishness. That being a good father starts with showing up, not with excuses. I learned what I truly need in a partner. Not flowers, not gifts, not someone to post happy pictures with, but someone who chooses me on the hard days. Someone who asks, "How are you?" and listens. Someone who stays when it's easier to run. I used to think I needed him, but what I needed was the version of me that rose from the ashes. I needed the woman who could pay her own bills, the mother who didn't wait on anyone to show up, the soul who stared heartbreak in the face and said, "Not today." If you're still here, thank you. I didn't tell this story to chase sympathy. I told it because someone out there might be sitting in the dark with 2 kids, wondering why love left without a warning. Someone out there might be blaming herself, thinking maybe she wasn't enough, wasn't pretty enough, strong enough, patient enough. But let me be clear, you are never the problem. When a man walks away from his family, from the child who bears his name, from the woman who carried his dreams, that's not your failure. That's his. And if you're healing, if you're clawing your way back to air, let me remind you of this. You are not weak because you cry. You are not broken because you stayed too long. You are not stupid because you believed love would be enough. You were human. And now? Now you're wiser. You're still standing. Maybe with scars. Maybe with tired eyes. But you're still here. And your children? They're watching. Not just how you fall, but how you rise. They will remember the warmth in your voice, the meals you cooked with half a soul, the hugs that held them together when the world was pulling them apart. They won't remember the man who left. They'll remember the woman who never did. So if you've lived a story like mine, if you've loved and lost and kept going, I hope you know, you are the ending you were always waiting for. If this story touched your heart, share your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to Lies Unveiled for more true stories that deserve to be heard. Because sometimes the quietest voices carry the loudest truths.